Tommy is furious, and all eyes are on Diamond. Everything seemed calm for a moment, but one shocking event has changed everything. Secrets are coming out, and betrayal is in the air. Tommy is about to make a decision that could change his life forever. In this episode, alliances will be tested, loyalties will break, and a single mistake could cost someone everything. Who is really to blame? Could it be Diamond? Or is there more to the story than meets the eye? Get ready, because the drama in Power Book 4 for Season 3, Episode 8 is about to explode. The morning started quietly, but the tension between Tommy and Diamond was obvious to anyone who could sense it. Tommy had been watching Diamond for days, feeling a mix of suspicion and anger that he could not shake. He thought he trusted her, thought she was loyal, but small signs had begun to pile up, little actions and words that didn't add up. Diamond, on the other hand, seemed calm, collected, almost untouchable. She moved through the day as if she had no idea that Tommy was starting to doubt her. Their past was full of shared victories and battles fought together, which made Tommy's growing suspicion even harder to accept. He remembered times when Diamond had his back, when she had risked everything for him. And yet now he could not ignore the uneasy feeling in his gut. Something had changed, and Tommy needed answers. He could feel the tension building inside him, like a storm waiting to break, and he was not sure if he was ready for the consequences of what he might discover. He replayed conversations in his mind, looking for clues, trying to understand if this was betrayal or just a misunderstanding. Meanwhile, Diamond was focused on her own plans. Unaware that every step she took was being watched by Tommy, he had been keeping an eye on her movements, noticing the smallest details, a secretive text, a meeting that was supposed to be private, a look exchanged with someone he did not know. Each of these moments felt like a brick in a wall separating them, a wall built from distrust that grew taller every day. Tommy tried to convince himself that he was overthinking, that Diamond was still the ally he had always counted on. But deep down, he could not shake the nagging thought that something was about to happen, something that would force him to confront Diamond in a way he had never done before. He remembered the stakes to everything they had built together. Every plan and every risk taken could be ruined by a single mistake or a hidden secret. And now the storm was approaching faster than he expected. The tension in the air grew heavier as the day wore on, and Tommy could no longer ignore the feeling that something was off. Every time he thought about Diamond, his mind raced with possibilities, some frightening, some just plain unbelievable. He remembered the night before, when he had caught a glimpse of her talking to someone in the shadows, someone whose face he didn't recognize. The way she smiled, the way her words seemed carefully measured, made him question everything he thought he knew about her. It was not just a feeling anymore. It was a certainty that things were changing. Tommy began replaying every shared moment they had, every conversation, every plan they had made together. He searched for the signs he might have missed, the little hints that could explain why Diamond seemed suddenly different. In his mind, he could see the pattern forming, like a puzzle that was almost complete but with one crucial piece missing. That missing piece was gnawing at him, making him restless and frustrated. He tried to focus on other things, on the work that demanded his attention, but every task felt meaningless when his thoughts kept drifting back to Diamond. He wanted answers, but he also feared what the answers might reveal. Meanwhile, Diamond moved through her day with a quiet confidence that seemed almost untouchable. She was meticulous, calculating, and aware that people were always watching her, even when they pretended not to. She had her own reasons for every action she took, reasons that only she fully understood. In her mind, the decisions she made were necessary even if they appeared questionable to outsiders. She knew Tommy's instincts well enough to understand that he would begin to suspect her eventually. Perhaps she even expected it. But her own plans were moving forward, and she could not allow herself to be distracted by his growing doubts. Every interaction, every word, and every gesture was intentional. She was building something bigger than herself, something that required careful maneuvering, and she could not afford a single misstep. Yet, even as she executed her plan, she remained aware of Tommy's watchful eyes. She knew the storm was coming, the confrontation that would be unavoidable, and she had to be ready for it. She needed to protect her own position while also ensuring that Tommy's actions did not derail everything. Tommy, however, was already spiraling deeper into suspicion. He found himself retracing Diamond's steps in his mind, imagining conversations that may or may not have happened, wondering if she had been hiding secrets all along. He felt betrayed, but he also felt a strange mixture of admiration and fear for her, admiration for her intelligence and the way she handled situations, and fear of what she was capable of if pushed too far. He knew that confronting her would be risky, that it could either resolve his doubts or shatter their relationship completely. And yet, he could not wait any longer. The tension had built to a point where inaction felt impossible. Every glance he exchanged with her, every word she said, felt loaded with meaning. He read between the lines, looking for hidden messages, trying to anticipate her next move. At the same time, outside forces were quietly influencing their world. Other players in the game, unseen but impactful, were making moves that would complicate matters even further. Tommy was aware of this, but his focus remained fixed on Diamond. He felt that if he could understand her motivations, if he could uncover the truth behind her actions, he could regain control of the situation. But as the day turned into night, the stakes became clearer. Every decision, every interaction carried weight. Tommy's frustration grew, and he could feel anger bubbling beneath the surface. He was torn between the loyalty he once felt and the suspicion that now consumed him. One mistake, one misjudgment, could ignite a confrontation that neither of them would be able to control. And as he prepared himself for what was coming, he could feel the tension reaching its breaking point, like a tightly wound string ready to snap, signaling that nothing would ever be the same again. The night brought a chill that seemed to seep into Tommy's bones, and with it came the moment he had been dreading and anticipating all day. Diamond's movements had always been precise, calculated, but tonight something was different. Tommy had been following subtle hints all day, little inconsistencies that didn't match her usual demeanor, and they had all led to this moment. He finally confronted a truth he could no longer ignore. Something Diamond had done had crossed a line he could not overlook. It started with a call he overheard, a cryptic conversation that revealed more than he wanted to know. The words were carefully chosen, but Tommy felt the weight behind them, the implication that Diamond had made a choice, one that directly affected him and his plans. His mind raced with anger and confusion. How could she do this? Why would she take such a risk without telling him? Betrayal, he realized, was not just a word anymore, it was a living, breathing a reality standing in front of him. As he replayed the day in his head, every small action and word from Diamond took on a new, sharper meaning. That smile she had given him earlier in the day, the way she seemed distracted during their conversations, the mysterious text she had received, all of it pointed to a truth he had been avoiding. He felt a rush of emotion, hurt, rage, disbelief. Tommy's chest tightened as he realized that the woman he had trusted more than anyone had potentially jeopardized everything he had worked for. Yet, even in his fury, he struggled to understand her motives. Was this deliberate? Was it a betrayal meant to hurt him, or was there a hidden purpose he could not see yet? He wanted answers, and he needed them immediately. There was no room for hesitation. The tension that had been simmering beneath the surface exploded inside him, leaving him restless and unpredictable. Diamond, unaware of the full extent of Tommy's awareness, continued to operate with her usual precision. She had anticipated challenges, rivalries, and obstacles, but she may have underestimated the intensity of Tommy's emotions. She believed she had covered her tracks, that the actions she had taken would not be questioned so soon, and that her careful planning would shield her from suspicion. But Tommy's instincts were sharp and his attention to detail unmatched. He had noticed the smallest deviations in her behavior, and now those observations coalesced into a picture that he could no longer ignore. In that moment, the carefully constructed barrier of trust between them began to crumble. The unspoken tension, which had been simmering for weeks, became tangible, almost suffocating. The confrontation that was inevitable drew nearer with every passing second. Tommy's thoughts were a storm of accusations, doubts, and memories of better times when trust had been absolute and loyalty unquestioned. He remembered how Diamond had once been his closest ally, someone whose word had been enough to calm his fears, whose presence had offered comfort and certainty. Now, that sense of security felt like a distant memory, replaced by suspicion and the fear of irreversible mistakes. He could see the consequences of inaction. If he ignored what he suspected, he risked losing control over not only his plans but also his very sense of authority and safety. Every instinct screamed at him to act, to confront Diamond, to demand the truth no matter how painful it might be. Meanwhile, the world around them seemed oblivious to the storm brewing between Tommy and Diamond. Others moved in shadows, pursuing their own agendas, unaware that their actions could ignite even greater conflict. Tommy realized that in this web of secrecy and manipulation, he could not afford to hesitate. His mind raced with strategies, possibilities, and outcomes, but one thing remained clear: the next move would define everything. The tension between Tommy and Diamond had reached a critical point. Words unspoken, glances exchanged, and actions taken in silence had built up to this precise moment, where the truth could no longer be avoided. The night seemed heavier, darker, and filled with a sense of inevitable confrontation. And in the midst of it all, Tommy understood one thing clearly: no matter the reason, no matter the explanation, he would hold Diamond accountable for what had just happened. And the repercussions of this decision would echo far beyond tonight. The tension that had been building for days finally erupted into a storm that neither Tommy nor Diamond could ignore. The truth that Tommy had uncovered hung between them like a blade, sharp and unforgiving, ready to cut through the fragile remnants of trust. Every step he took, every glance he cast, carried the weight of suspicion and hurt. The city outside continued in its usual chaos, oblivious to the personal battlefield that had taken over their world. Tommy's mind was a whirlwind of accusations, questions, and memories of what once was. He couldn't believe that Diamond, the person he had relied on through every challenge, could act in a way that threatened everything they had built. Yet, the evidence was undeniable, and denial was no longer an option. The realization that someone so close could potentially betray him left a bitter taste that no amount of reasoning could wash away. He knew that tonight would change everything: relationships, alliances, and perhaps even the balance of power that had once seemed unshakable. Diamond, on the other hand, moved with a calm that belied the chaos around her. She understood that Tommy's anger was inevitable, but she also knew that his perception might not tell the whole story. Her mind raced with justifications, explanations, and strategies, but she could sense that the storm was too intense to be deflected by words alone. The history they shared made this confrontation even more complex. She had walked beside Tommy through victories and losses, had shared plans and secrets that no one else knew, and yet all of that seemed to pale against the force of suspicion now driving him. Diamond had always been careful, calculating each step to ensure she remained ahead, but she also knew that one wrong move could shatter the fragile line between loyalty and betrayal. As she watched Tommy approach, her thoughts were focused not just on defending herself, but on the bigger picture: what could be lost, what could be gained, and how far each of them was willing to go. The confrontation began in silence at first, a tense stillness filled only by the unsaid words and the sharp rhythm of Tommy's heartbeat. He looked at Diamond, searching for signs of guilt, for any hint that might confirm his suspicions. His anger simmered beneath the surface, a slow burn that threatened to ignite at any moment. Diamond met his gaze, unwavering and composed, yet aware that every second was critical. The weight of unspoken accusations and potential explanations hung heavily in the air. Each knew that this moment could either destroy the fragile bond they shared or reveal hidden truths that might alter their understanding of each other forever. The tension between them was almost tangible, a force that seemed to pull at the edges of reality, making it hard to breathe, hard to think, hard to decide what to do next. As the night deepened, Tommy struggled with conflicting emotions. Part of him wanted to lash out, to confront Diamond with every accusation he could muster, to force her to admit what he already feared. But another part of him hesitated, realizing that anger without understanding could ruin everything. He thought about the risks, about what it would mean if he misjudged her intentions. And yet, the thought of standing by and doing nothing was equally unbearable. He could feel the pressure building inside him, a storm of doubt, anger, and fear that threatened to spill over. Diamond sensed this as well. She understood that Tommy's perception of events could not easily be changed, that his anger and hurt were powerful forces that could drive him to act in ways he might later regret. She weighed her options carefully, knowing that any word, any gesture, could tip the balance one way or the other. Finally, the moment reached its peak. An unspoken climax where every glance, every heartbeat, and every thought seemed magnified. Tommy's hand trembled slightly as he made his decision to confront, to accuse, to demand answers. Diamond's eyes met his, calm but resolute, prepared for the consequences of the choice she had made. In that silence, the tension became unbearable, as if the world itself was holding its breath. And in that suspended moment, it became clear that nothing would ever be the same again. Loyalties were tested, trust was broken, and the fallout of this confrontation would ripple far beyond tonight, leaving each of them to face the consequences of actions that could no longer be undone. The night ended not with resolution, but with a looming uncertainty, a question that hung in the air. Would Tommy find the truth, or would the shadows of doubt destroy everything they had built together?